Good morning, everybody. Again, this is Robert Newland with Newland Associates. I'm here with Jill Seeley, our VP of Talent Management Services. Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Robert.
So we're going to talk today about, aligning your talent strategy with your business strategy and what's new with Predictive Index that allows us to do that. But before we do that, I'd be remiss if I don't do our 30-second commercial on our firm, Newland Associates. We help organizations decode the human for business outcomes. We have a couple of practices, one of them around executive search. We also have a talent management practice where we do our work around executive coaching, leader development, as well as assessments. We have an HR advisory practice and under which we do a lot of work in fractional HR, traditional HR services, affirmative action, EO compliance. And then lastly, we also have an outplacement practice. Two more things of relevance to note. First, we are a Predictive Index certified partner. That is one of the reasons we're going to be talking about this today. It is a great tool that we're using with many of our clients with tremendous success, and we've become big fans of it. We're also part of Career Partners International. We're over 60 firms with operations in 50 countries, and we provide outplacement services and executive coaching services to many organizations domestically in the U.S. and across the globe. Lastly, before we begin, I just want to say buenos días y saludos a todos. I know we have a number of our clients and friends from Puerto Rico who are on the call, so I wanted to do my Puerto Rican version of an intro. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. And so talent optimization. Jill, tell me about this.
Well, Robert, talent optimization is really the missing link between business strategy and year-end results. It's way bigger than any organization. It's really a different way of thinking about talent. A lot of leaders agree that their biggest problems are people problems, and the hard part with people problems is that it really can be difficult to objectively identify and address them. So confronted with this, we look internally and we find that we are bad at putting people in the right roles, and we do much too little to prepare and train managers and future leaders. So, many organizations are plagued with poor job fit, bad management, poor team dynamics, and poor cultures. Talent is arguably the last big differentiator a business has. It's what stands between an average company and innovative companies. So talent optimization is how PI helps companies perform better and helps employees be happier, more engaged, and more productive.
And are you noticing a shift in the consulting industry in terms of what CEOs are valuing when it comes to talent, or is it still more of the same where it was that thing that HR did that I didn't want to know anything about?
Right. Well, in a CEO study that was conducted by the Predictive Index, 2 out of the top 3 challenges facing CEOs are talent-related. Companies are struggling with finding the right talent. Our unemployment has remained consistently low, and then they feel their people are not aligned with their strategy. So really, it's pretty significant.
Okay, so based on cost of employees to a CEO, this data does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Is it surprising to you that more than 50% of CEOs' costs are labor-related? I mean, it seems like CEOs spend a lot of time planning areas like finance, but lack in planning around talent. But this data shows CEOs responding that strategy and talent are absolutely their most important priorities. And it's really where Predictive Index methodology can help. With PI, you can take an objective, systematic approach to understanding your people and then use those insights to improve the way that they work. So you have a better workplace and a better world.
Well, I've noticed, I belong to a CEO peer group here in Orlando, and the talent perspective has become really in the forefront of the discussions. They still don't know,
right?
How to address it. It's still more of a HR do this thing, but it's becoming an issue that they are truly addressing. And here are some things that we put together that we hear from our clients. Is our leadership team in agreement with strategy? I'm going to go down a few, and you can read them all. How do we adapt our culture to succeed? So it's interesting to see that now we're talking more culture, and not just in HR, but also at the
Right.
C-suite.
Yeah, absolutely. And these concerns are not just from, your peers. It's from our clients. It's from our prospects. It's from people across the board. And what PI started to do is really listen and take note. And while we found that we were very much helping clients tactically, we weren't doing a good job supporting them strategically. So what happened is we had to build a new science, new training, technology, digital learning, and that's where the Predictive Index's talent optimization methodology was born. It's been developed so you can take, again, I go back consistently to an objective, systematic approach to understanding your people, and then use those insights to improve the way that they work.
So, it sounds complex. Is it really a complicated thing to implement? Because it sounds a lot like rocket science.
That's a great question. And the answer is very easy, and that's by design. So PI has created an entire methodology by which you can take the approach, again, objective and systematic, to understanding your people and use those insights to improve their work. So let's take a look. All businesses start out perhaps every January. I know, we just had our strategy meeting at the end of the year, right? And they start out because they want to achieve certain results. And what they do when they come up with these strategies is they want to determine where they're going to go, where they want to be. It gives them a sense of direction for the entire organization and helps them make decisions. And then once the business strategy has been established and the company is taking action to achieve those results, at the end of the year, one of two things happen. Can you guess what that is?
What is?
They either achieve the results or they don't, right? If they don't meet their goals and achieve what they have set out to do, the reason typically lies in this blank space here in the middle. It really usually has to do with some kind of people problems. Mm-hmm. And this could be anything such as high growth, disengagement, sales slumps, you name it. But really, in the end, some part of the people part of the equation isn't clicking.
So businesses have an approach to people part of that business. I would say with the same rigor that they may look at, operations, finance, compliance, etc. It seems that we find it to be not as quantifiable, if you will. And I don't know if that's what's driving, the lack of rigor around this.
You're right. And many times organizations don't realize that there are equally important people data, and it can help them succeed with the talent strategy. So the way businesses helps them manage their finance, they can use those same types of rigor around data to understand their people. And that's why talent optimization is designed to help you create this talent strategy that's going to enable you to execute that business strategy successfully and get to those results.
Okay, so let's get to it. How do we do that? How do we get it done?
So the underlying keys to getting it right, which this methodology has solved, is that it's got to be explicit, it's got to be agreed upon, and framed in people terms. And that brings us to the 4 aptitudes of talent optimization and the fact that it starts with design.
So once you have become clear about your business strategy, that naturally leads to results?
No, it does not. It doesn't magically happen. Unfortunately, I know that would be wonderful. And
no easy button.
Right. There is actually an easy button, and that's talent optimization. So you have to be intentional about how you're going to accomplish this with your talent. And this is what the design phase is all about. It's the solution that bridges the gap between the talent strategy and the business strategy. And you can think of design as putting in your basic infrastructure. It's laying the foundation. It's where businesses figure out how the organization should be structured and how things are going to get done.
And so if this is the infrastructure, if you will, is this something that you do one time or multiple times?
Great question. Although design is where it all begins, it really should be revisited every time there's a major change in the organization.
Okay, and so how do you go about this process?
They simply start with the new strategy assessment and determine the top 5, 7 things, the most critical things, the 20% that you've got to get absolutely right.
So that's interesting because I think I mentioned to you my CEO peer group, and one of the things that we talked about regarding strategy is, it's not just hard to communicate it, but it's sometimes very hard to get everyone on board with the same strategy. It seems that multiple executives within an organization can have different priorities, and then how do you get them all to, row in the same direction?
That's a perfect point. And the design aptitude is all about strategy alignment. In order to achieve your targeted business results, you've got to align your talent infrastructure to that business strategy. And so what it includes is selecting the organization's structure and making sure that it's structured in a way that makes sense for this strategy. The senior leadership team, of course, is a critical piece of executing the strategy. Therefore, you've got to evaluate the degree to which leaders' behavioral styles align to the strategy itself. For example, what if your strategy is highly focused on innovation? However, most of your members of the leadership team aren't naturally wired to drive innovation. You must understand the dynamics of the senior team and how they are going to work together cohesively, and how they're making decisions, how they're communicating that to their teams, because it's all going to trickle down. But most importantly, how they're going to take action. And then lastly, you have to purposely establish an organizational culture that's tightly aligned, and that reinforces the behaviors that are going to support that strategy.
So then you're tying culture to strategy, and then tying it all together with people. Can you tell us a little bit about what is the benefit of how people are aligned with it?
Sure. There's multiple benefits, and helping clients improve structurally, first of all, it simplifies how they think about complex talent questions. It reduces friction. Anytime there's senior leadership misalignment, it's going to cause that to trickle down, right? And it's going to increase the confidence in your executive team. It helps them to ensure that they've got the right stuff to execute that strategy, and removes the friction that gets in the way of getting business done. Again, going back to culture, engagement, and all the factors that relate to talent. You can ask, how do we get it right? Again, these 3 principles are key, and we take strategy, we make it clear, we make sure that it is 100% agreed upon and we frame it in terms of people and how that's going to lead us to results.
So if we were to quantify this, why would it be so crucial for everybody to agree, say everybody on board in the same strategy versus, half the team, a third of the team, or say 2/3 of the team?
That's a great question, Robert. Let's unpack that concept for a second. If you think about military officers marching into battle, do you think it's okay if 70% of them agree on the battle strategy? I'm a military brat, and I would say that my parents would say probably not. What about winning the Super Bowl? If the quarterback is arguing with their coordinators and the coach, are they gonna win at the end of the day? Here's another example. If you're being wheeled into surgery, are you going to be comfortable if the doctors and nurses and other operating staff are only 70% agreed on the plan?
Oh,
I mean,
no.
that's how the wrong leg gets amputated, right?
Yeah.
And business experts know that 100% agreement is critical to business success. In fact, a study by BCG identified that the most common pattern around business failure was a lack of agreement amongst leaders, because it trickles down to the middle management levels of the organization, and that's where the work gets done.
So are you actually finding that executive teams are misaligned?
Actually, on average, we found that about 70% is the agreement in most organizations. Is that good enough? Well, we just talked about that. In a high-stakes game, nothing short of 100% agreement is going to be good enough. And what's more high stakes than your livelihood, your business?
I could see the coach of a Super Bowl team explaining to the owner, well, we failed because only 7% of the players were aligned in that last play, so we fumbled.
Yeah, the other 30% of the team were in a completely different playbook. Exactly. Yeah. So the talent optimization model makes it pretty easy in 4 steps with a design piece. It starts out, they take the assessment, they gain agreement. they understand the executive capabilities, they evaluate the leadership team dynamics, and then you create your talent blueprint.
So, not to use the word unpack again, but can you walk us through that and unpack it a bit further?
Sure. I do love that unpacking things, right? And that's kind of what we're doing, is we're just taking all this, unpacking it, and letting everybody kind of take a look. So when we look at mapping strategies, there's really 4 types of strategic activities that we can look at. The first we'll look at is exploring. So if an organization's focus is on pursuing opportunities, being nimble and flexible, and ultimately their goal is to get new products and services out that are unique to the market, that would fall under exploring. Then we look at cultivating, which is focusing on employee commitment and morale, and an inward focus on innovation towards employee cohesion. And that's when companies' highest results are framed around employee engagement and participation. We look at a stabilizing culture where the focus is on really efficiency and predictability. It's making sure that you, at the end of the day, success looks like getting a higher performance level out of existing offerings and making sure that your employees or your customers stay loyal and your employees are doing everything to make sure that happens. And then lastly, we have a producing culture or strategy, and that's a focus on accumulating clients and really growing and building, being very competitive. That's when you're trying to get that high market penetration and market share.
So when I look at all this, and I think of organizations, how do they find out where they need to focus?
That is a great question. So it's critical that they not just look at all of the strategies that they want to have throughout the organizations, but the critical strategies over the next 12 to 8 months, and making sure that those are aligned and that they're agreed upon. So after taking the brief assessment, your executives will know what strategies they wish to pursue or not, but more importantly, you're going to highlight the areas of disagreement. So after our clients take the assessment, we work with them on getting the team more agreed on a central vision, and that's going to propagate and trickle down through the rest of the company. So
this chart that you see here is something that comes in the platform.
This is kind of an illustration, but I can kind of show you a little bit here what this looks like. And really, when I'm gonna back up a little bit here. And go back to this, because when everybody's in alignment with those 3 to 5 critical strategies, the good news is that it's explicit and agreed upon and framed in people terms. But the bad news is that misalignment of talent can still cause issues. And so it's not just whether or not we have the strategy, it's how this team can execute this particular strategy. Right, so let's say, our strategy is up here in cultivating, and then we look back to those strategies and how we can map them with our people. So we look at the 17 reference profiles, right? And we look at how the leadership teams, according to the PI behavioral assessments, are aligned with each of those areas for executing strategy. So what we're going to look at is a couple, and again, this is all part of the platform, and here's what it pops out with, right? So these are a couple examples of the insights generated by combining the strategy assessment and the behavioral assessment. So I'll just kind of let you look at these, and again, we're going to unpack these. So once the team's taken the strategy assessment and we drill down, here's kind of an example, right? The things where people are agreed upon, great. We don't really have to touch those too much. The things that they're clear that they don't pursue, again, we're not going to spend time with that. But when you see those things in the middle where there's like 50-50 agreement on what we're going to pursue, it's funny because it's amazing how executive teams respond when they see this. And the value they find just looking at these results. I was walking through this with one of our clients, and there was this moment of dead silence as they just looked at these results, and they kind of took it all in. And the CEO was convinced before we started this that the strategy was clear across the executive team. what happened is that it really helped to open dialogue and bring unknown issues to the table. It brought up some hidden things that people hadn't considered and really opened up discussions about how their perceptions were trickling down to their teams. In the end, it brought clarity and alignment and gave them all a sigh of release, and helped them to get re-energized. I was told afterwards that they were all on the same page for the first time, and they were energized and felt ready to go and attack. So when you look at the second part, we started discussing their strategy and looked at the core behavioral hardwiring of that team. And we could discuss the challenges that they had been having with strategy around cultivating. Really, it became more clear after seeing that largely the culture and behaviors of the team were most well aligned with producing and stabilizing, right? But if you look at this, it shows the strategy here in the purple around cultivating. They didn't really have a strong leadership presence that were behaviorally hardwired to execute there.
That's really interesting. When you look at this concept, what I find fascinating is that I've seen a lot of behavioral assessments, but they're never really tied to the business strategy component. And I think this is really, really exciting and actually quite useful, for many organizations. It seems there's always a struggle in translating the strategy to what does the team look like, right? And I think, as you said, sometimes you may have a team, for example, that, and I use this example often, maybe heading into innovation, but maybe your business strategy is sort of sustain and maintain. So if you're able to match them both and see where you're lacking and see where you're strong, it depersonalizes a lot of things because there's transparency in communication. And that's great. So I love the design concept, but now let's go on to how do we get to results? Because I think we're kind of halfway there.
Let's go back to our talent optimization model again. I think anybody who's on the call who's familiar with Predictive Index are familiar with Hire Inspire, but now when we have begun with design, we can better determine how to both hire and inspire our people. So, you have the hire aptitude, and it's really about candidate fit. And to successfully execute the business strategy, you've got to get the right people in the right places. So hire is really, again, about candidate fit. It is ensuring that the candidate's behaviors or the employee's behaviors and motivations are aligned to the requirements of the job and the company strategy. But it goes beyond simply looking at job fit. You really, you've got to equip your leaders to find the candidates or the people that are going to fit that specific need that they have. And this is accomplished by ensuring that you're using people data to present leaders only with the highest caliber candidates. And when leaders are preparing to interview those high caliber candidates or potential candidates, you can use further people data to identify the best interview questions to use for confirming their strengths and for probing areas of concern. And then when you hire new employees and add them to a team, you create it's critical that you understand the behavioral styles of those people when you're bringing them into an existing team to predict how those dynamics might play out in order to assess candidate team fit. A candidate may be capable of doing a job fit well with a team, but are they a good fit for the culture? So culture fit also has to be evaluated to make sure the candidates are going to act in ways that will reinforce this culture that you've built, and also feel like they're a good fit for the organization. So
what you're saying is, with design, we can, take our strategy and map it to behavioral profiles of teams and individuals. I get that. And I think I know the answer to this, but since you're doing such a great presentation, I will let you answer. Many organizations may say, I'm sort of all set with my team. I don't have any job openings. Then how does that fit into this platform?
Great point. Even if you don't have a current need to hire an external candidate into an open job, you can still use the hire, and you should still use the hire approach with internal and existing employees. And that can be anything from promoting an employee into a higher level or role, moving an employee to a lateral role, assigning an employee to a special project or task force, or providing an additional responsibility to an existing job, even if it's only temporary.
So providing for example, a growth assignment or opportunity for a hike or high potential, it goes back to the sign on aligning then strategy and culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And for these internal employee activities, it's critical to, again, align those needs of the job that needs to be done to the individual's hard wiring and those behaviors, just as you would for an external candidate hire.
So you hire the right people, that's
Mm-hmm.
great, tied to culture and strategy, that's great. But then comes the other component of this, which is how you keep people happy, engaged, and really productive in the organization.
Well, great question, and that is where the inspire aptitude comes into play.
Okay.
And inspire is about employee productivity and engagement. Now, this deals with creating compelling career paths for employees, developing capabilities of your leaders, and making sure that you're enhancing their self-awareness, because we both know that self-awareness is the number one predictor of leadership strength, right?
Right.
And understanding how to better manage relationships with others. We go back to the golden versus the platinum rule that you always love when I bring up.
I think you should share it because I like it now.
It's about moving from the golden rule of treating people how we want to be treated to the platinum rule, which is to treat people how they need to be treated. And so in design, we talk about intentionally creating a culture that supports your business strategy. However, if left unmonitored, you can still lose that culture you worked so hard to create. In Inspire, you reinforce and maintain your culture through communication, recognition, and rewards.
So we have design strategy, we have hire, talent acquisition, really selecting people, whether it's internal or externally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now we're getting into engagement with Inspire. That's really great. That's a lot that's been accomplished, right?
Absolutely. In design, you've aligned your talent. In hire, you're focused on fit. Inspire, you're developing employees. You've successfully done this. Now
Right.
You have to continually monitor your talent strategy to make sure it's working, and that's where Diagnose comes in. And Diagnose is about monitoring people data. You need to understand what's working, what's not working, and then take action to make adjustments. It's about measuring. We hear this all the time. If it's not measured, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Diagnose is about measuring what matters. You can accomplish this through tools such as the Employee Experience Survey to measure engagement. And then analyzing the data, you look at the employee experience data and identify takeaways such as celebrating the successes of the organization, but also extracting blind spots and opportunities for improvement. And then prescribing improvement actions. And once you've identified those improvement areas, you've got to take action to drive positive change. And that's going to enhance the health of the talent strategy and increase the likelihood that your organization is going to achieve targeted business results.
So let me interrupt here. So
Sure.
Engagement is very critical.
Correct.
And something organizations struggle with, right? People have seen this before, but tell us a bit about the cost of lack of engagement or disengagement.
Absolutely. The United States, this number is baffling to me, but the United States wastes $500 billion in employee disengagement every year. So the average 350-person company wastes about $3 million per year in lost productivity due to disengagement. But you think about how that may be playing out in your organization. And, most companies know this.
So about 2/3 of organizations use engagement data because they understand it's important, but just about 1 in 5 of employees are actively engaged.
Yeah. And I've talked to so many leaders who are always frustrated with engagement surveys because results alone only show you the world in black and white.
Right.
You can see problems at a high level, but you can't really make out the details. And it's just commonly known that the best way to disengage your employees is to do a survey and then do what?
Nothing.
Exactly. So, using data that pinpoints and prescribes actions shows you your world not in black and white, but finally in Technicolor, and you don't just see the problems, but gives you roadmaps to fix them. According to Forbes, highly engaged teams are 21% more productive than teams with low engagement and see 2.3 times greater revenue growth. Imagine that your employees are 20% more accomplished on a daily basis. quick story. We had one Predictive Index client, and after going through, talent optimization, it was a large food distributor. They're, multi-billion-dollar company, and they were struggling with 50% retention rate among sales. When they first started implementing these, they, within the first year, moved their retention from 50 to 70%, and then after the second year, their retention was at 83%, but not only were their sales staff retention at 83%, but the average sales per employee increased by 20%. So it's not just tackling one problem. When you look at all of this of its entirety, it really drives that engine of productivity and results.
It's very interesting, and I think it's really great when people in the HR function are able to quantify for leaders of the organizations the cost of disengagement and versus engaged employees, because it's really a substantial, staggering difference in terms of lost productivity and the cost associated to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the diagnose solution is really the secret weapon to making your talent your competitive edge. And diagnose is a 3-step process to unlocking productivity and profitability. And it's the solution around diagnose includes the employee engagement survey, an employee experience coaching package, and then the diagnose software, along with a workshop for managers to help them take action on their results.
So, there are a lot of engagement surveys out there. Why do you think PI, Predictive Index, decided to create one as part of their platform?
Well, some of the key differentiators is that it reveals both the problem and gives you the solution. The employee engagement survey and other products and these are the core differences, is that it shows you scores across the dimensions of key areas of disengagement, such as job fit, manager alignment, interactions with coworkers, and the culture. And then it compares those results to a benchmark and provides a summary of strengths and blind spots. And really the first step in the diagnose solution is the employee experience survey. While most engagement surveys show you the data, PI reveals the problem, the solution, and how to get to the answer, right? Think of it as a personal escalator. You're going from the bottom and you need to get to the top of the solution. You're climbing the mountain, and it eliminates the guesswork on exactly where you need to go.
So if you kind of open it and show us a bit of how it works on the inside, can you give some of that?
Sure. First of all, just to note that the results are scientifically validated, and really what that means is that it accurately measures what it says it measures. So the surveys are broken down by job fit, manager, people, and organization, and it really connects the dots between engagement results and the roots of the problem. So there's no more guessing where to start when addressing vague survey responses. The way that the algorithm in the software works is that they benchmark the most important problems to the ones that they find are the biggest indicators of what leads to disengagement. So after you collect those results, the report gives you an overview of the responses from all the departments and teams, and it divides it into an overall engagement score, as well as individual scores related to 4 different categories, again, that affect the disengagement the most. And the scores are measured against this external benchmark, which, by the way, was determined by surveying over 3,000 respondents to identify those items and conducting several psychometric analysis to evaluate the reliability and correlation on engagement.
I was just going to say that's really cool, because I know that Predictive Index has a very strong science team.
Correct. They're consistently doing validity studies on all of their science, and the strengths and blind spots analysis, and that it pops out really empowers that executive team to understand what's working and where to start focusing on the areas that need improvement immediately. And these blind spots, guess what? They become the basis for your action plan.
So we migrated from here's information to here's information, here's the data, and now here's what you need to do with it, right?
Absolutely, because that's always the hardest part. It's like, okay, I have all this information, but what do we do? How do we fix it? So the action plans are really the secret weapon when it comes to how to solve the problems. And it fills the void that almost every other engagement survey leaves behind because it connects the data to results. And being armed with this action plan instills confidence in your employees, and it shows that you're listening, which
Right.
is, we know, again, by doing the survey and doing nothing, you are doing more harm than good. But when you actually listen and act upon their feedback, it provides dividends
Mm-hmm.
and the returns. Another great feature that I love is the heat maps, and it really gives you a bird's eye view into the work experience across teams. It paints an instant picture of where teams and managers are excelling and struggling, and identifies managers who may need more support in taking action.
So, I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward. However, sometimes, taking action on engagement issues can be, a scary proposition.
Right. And it's like, who has time for that? We have a million other things that we have to do. Well, you know what? Nothing's more important than making sure your employees get their job done effectively, right? At the end of
Yeah.
the day, regardless of what else you have to do. And a lot of people feel that way, right? It's one of the biggest challenges in talent management, as we've learned with our clients over the years. A lot of people, they've come to see that PI definitely considered these concerns and bringing this all together. So what they've developed is the coaching and the one-on-one workshops, which are the magic bullets for increasing engagement, productivity, profitability. The coaching and taking action engagement workshops, critical pieces of the diagnosed solution, because they really provide step-by-step guidance that, this is very important, it's tailored specifically to your organization's unique challenges, and looking at, back to the design phase, what the strategic goals of the company. And then, we provide the expert support and insights to make sure that you get where you're going. And really, you can't get these tools anywhere else.
Right. Well, I gotta tell you, I've enjoyed working with Predictive Index and our clients, bringing this platform to them. It's just fascinating to me how such a short behavioral assessment can give you so much, and then, their vision of integrating the strategic component
Mm-hmm.
to it, and then the engagement component to it. It's just fascinating to me. I think they've done a great job.
It's game changing, and our clients tell us that. We just rolled this entire platform upgrade out this year, and already people are just ecstatic about it, and we're hearing amazing things from Predictive Index clients who have instituted it, already seeing results.
Yeah, that's something people may not know. I mean, the components around engagement and strategy are really the two new components
Mm-hmm.
for Predictive Index, but we have some quotes from some clients that are already using it and how they feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, at the end of the day, Robert, using those people and data insights to strengthen our teams. I love this quote by Michael Jordan, and we can kind of start to wrap up with this, but talent wins game, but teamwork and intelligence wins championships. And really, talent's not enough. We've got a bunch of talented people working individually, but if we can't get them to work cohesively, rowing in the same direction towards our strategic vision, then, if we can get them all going in that direction, we can accomplish so much more.
Yeah, I am a fan. I really enjoy what we're doing here, and our clients feel the same way. We don't want to take too much more of your time. Just wanted to first let me thank Jill for becoming our Predictive Index guru.
My pleasure.
You know this as good as you know probably your daughter.
Oh, I know this way better than I know my daughter. She's 13. That's a work in progress.
Oh, really, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain this to us, and I want to say thank you for the attendance, those who were able to make it, and just to let you and your peers know, if you couldn't make it today, this is being recorded, so we're going to share it with everybody as well. If you want to know more about our firm or the Predictive Index, you can shoot an email at info@newlandcpi.com. I think most of you know us. So we're happy that we have a lot of our clients here on the call. And I think with that, we're going to call it a day, and thank everybody for being here. Jill,
Thank you. All right.
All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.